The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today we have Agile's Chief Information Officer and Managing Partner, Verlan Stephens. I am Dylan Potts with Agile Education Marketing, and I will be moderating this session today. Today's session will also be getting recorded, so if you must leave early for any reason, there will be a link sent out of this presentation. Everyone will be on mute besides Verlan and I, so if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat, and Verlan will address them at the end of the session. All the handouts will be available. With that being said, Verlan, I would love to hand it over to you so you can cover Agile and the education market.
All right, thanks, Dylan. Thanks for the intro. Hello, everyone. Glad to be here today. I'd love to talk about Agile and the data that we compile and make available to our customers. So, it's a real pleasure to have that opportunity to share and talk about that today. Without any further ado, let's kind of move it ahead here a little bit. So, data deep dive. So the first question is, what's unique about the education market? One thing that's really unique about it is it's 100% known universe. We laugh all the time that we wish we, as Agile, knew who all of our customers could be and all kinds of characteristics, who all their employees are, and what kind of products they have. You guys, the people marketing into education, have that. It's 100% known universe. And so it's really great that you have that opportunity to really have that advantage of the information. How does data inform strategy? We're going to talk about that and what can you do with that. How do you take advantage of this? Why worry about data? And we'll go into a little bit of how does this work as we get into the end of the presentation. Let's start for a minute and talk about Agile just a little bit. So Agile's been around 12 and a half years. Bob Odell, my co-founder, and I started Agile in February of 2009 after we had gotten the opportunity to go out on our own, that we were both working for Quality Education Data, which was a subsidiary or a wholly owned subsidiary of Scholastic. And they sold the organization to one of Agile's competitors. And Bob and I were looking for an opportunity. And I had worked for a number of startups, had been involved in startups. And, I really thought at the time, what, I think we can reboot this. I think we can do it better. I think we know so much from our knowledge of this. Bob was the perfect partner for me. Bob has the deep education background, PhD in education technology. He worked as a teacher. He worked at the district level. So Bob was a great partner for me to round out the education piece of it. And my background was all in data management. So, I've got a 30-year career in data management and understanding how to compile and maintain large data sets. I've got here in the notes, one of the things that was really funny when we first started it, one of our competitors said, "Oh, Agile's just two geeks in a basement." Well, I need to set the record straight. We weren't in a basement. I was in an upstairs bedroom, guest room, and Bob had an upstairs office. So there wasn't a basement involved in the early days. So setting the record straight. Two geeks, that's probably true. But, in the last 12 and a half years, we've grown to over 35 employees. We've grown this organization a lot. And really, we really felt like we could make a difference in this market. And I think we have. We really focus exclusively on education. Nobody else focuses exclusively on education. And that's what our passion is. Our passion is, collecting this information, organizing it, and making it available for all of you guys. So why education? I talked about it a little bit on the intro. It's identifiable. We know exactly who all the school districts are, what all the schools are, who all the people are, and what their job titles. And one of the nice things, particularly in the K-12 space, is the titles and responsibilities are fairly well defined. we know what principals do. We know what a second grade teacher does. We know what the tech coordinator does. So the job titles are relatively common across, and new ones come up all the time, and we'll introduce new job titles as they do. But, you know, it's a, you know, again, very known universe. We carry at the district level over 600 data elements. You know, we're very excited. We made a decision from early on, and part of it is just my background as a data person. Love that being able to really understand the characteristics of a school or district. And, you know, at the same time, one of our competitors was narrowing their stuff down. We went deep with it, and we really wanted to gather as much information as possible. And we'll talk about a little later why that was important. We have dozens of personal data elements. We have a educator at home data set, and we know whether a teacher owns a home, whether they're married. You know, we've got a lot of things there too, because we work with some companies that really market to the educators as consumers, and they have a particular demographic that make them particularly attractive, or teachers as teachers. You know, one of our customers, we did a lot of work with Dell over this last year, that early into the pandemic, they recognized an opportunity that as teachers were having to transition home, they needed equipment. They were one of the first in the market to offer discount programs to teachers, and we worked with them to drive social media programs to get that out in front of the teachers, so they knew that they could get on and get discounts on hardware so that they could be more effective from their homes in providing the lessons. And it's a big impact. 50 million students, 7.5 million educators. You know, this is a sizable market. We look at, you know, total public expenditures, $720 billion. I want to say, I saw the numbers recently, and I'm drawing a little bit of a blank here, but I'm thinking it's about 7% of the gross domestic product. So, you know, education is a big market. There's a lot of money being spent. A lot of it's on personnel, but there's a lot of things that are in other areas. And right now we've got American Rescue Plan funding that's coming out, $128 billion getting pumped into schools. I just read this week that state funding is expected to increase another $24 billion in the coming 2 years. So, you know, we're continuing to see investment in it. I saw today, Colorado released their ESSER funding and what they're going to be doing with it. Of their, I don't have the total here, but they're going to spend $30 million to support high dosage tutoring, one-on-one type tutoring, one to few, and so some summer school and before and after school programs there, but that's the #1 plan for Colorado. 25 million for high-risk students, 10 to 12 million for high-quality instruction materials. So, you know, it's really impacting a lot of different areas. I was surprised. The next one's 15 million in career and tech ed. I was surprised that given that this funding was specifically toward COVID, I was surprised that they earmarked as much for CTE as they did there. $10 million, up to $10 million in state infrastructure for data collection, program evaluation, other things. You know, a little bit of hit on overhead there. 5 million for professional development. So gives you an idea that this money that's coming in, it's going to hit a lot of different areas in education, and that's going to be available for you all to take advantage of. When we look at that market a little bit, there are a lot of characteristics. You know, whether it is, you know, what type of school is this? Is it private, public, Catholic? Is it an early childhood center? What are the grade levels? What are the enrollments? Geographically, where it's located. Charter schools and CMO, EMOs. Where are their funding sources? How is that funding trending? Is it up, down, flat? You know, there's a lot of different data elements that we gather. we introduced about 6 years ago our EdIntel product. We built our own data mining tool to go out and gather information specifically on school districts, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. We also process on a daily basis ERate data, you know, billions of dollars getting pumped into the education space there. We'll talk a little bit about ERate and other things. We talked about the job titles and the definition of those. We also talked a bit about the personal data elements. K-12 market, you know, it's, if you include all the sub-districts and the other local education agencies and things, 23,000 agencies, 130,000 schools, K-12, 4.2 million people on our data set, and you know, about 56 million students, public, private combined. So, you know, again, very defined. We know what that looks like. You know, one of the data elements here, one of our clients is actually the federal government. NCES actually licenses our data to understand what their private school coverage looks like. Our data set is about 20% larger in terms of private schools than theirs is, because it's not a requirement for private schools to participate in their public school survey, or their private school survey, excuse me. And so with it not being a requirement, we gather our information directly from each of the states, compile that all together, and I'm particularly proud that they're one of our customers in terms of utilizing that information to understand that. We also cover higher ed. So, you know, 26 million students in college enrollment, and you know, that is again a lot of money being spent there, a lot of different products, a lot of opportunities there. 550 job titles specifically in higher ed. We do gather course level data so we can help target clear down to, you know, you're looking for, you know, we have some of our clients have very specific needs and want to reach out to very specific professors, whether they're teaching a particular course and they're trying to get textbooks out to them, or whether they want to be able to pull them into a specific museum. You know, they utilize that very detailed information to make sure their outreach is targeted to exactly the right folks. Agile also covers early childhood. So, you know, that particular area, whether it's a Head Start, whether it's a school with a pre-K in it, or whether it's a standalone early childhood center. The early childhood market has been hot, and it continues to be hot. One of our clients does a lot of market research. They're one of the leading education market research companies, and one of the last visits before COVID set that I was out visiting with them, they said almost all of their activity was around early childhood. They're trying to, you know, they're constantly evaluating what the opportunities are in the early childhood area. So, you know, hot area, and Agile rounds out our education with that. And we also collect public library information. You know, just another opportunity, and they interact so much with the schools. I was doing some research on tutoring, and a lot of the districts still were, oh, if you need additional tutoring, go to the library. The library has a tutoring program. So there's a tight tie-in with education in many communities with the public library. Mentioned a minute ago EdIntel, our district listening tool. So we built this data mining tool, and it runs 24/7. It's out gathering information from school and district websites. And we split the information into 13 different categories. We gather information, what assessment tools a district is using, what communication system, what email platform are they on? Are they on Google? Are they on Outlook? Are they using something else? So we gather that kind of information. What devices are they using? Chromebook? Are they using iPads? Both? That information is there. What interactive technologies? Are they buying smartboards or Prometheum? We know that information. What instructional methodologies are they using? You know, do they have the tools that line up with your product offerings? We know that kind of information. If you're doing integrations, what LMS and SIS systems are they using? So you know how well you'll play with their other solutions that they have there. We gather information on SEL and social emotional learning, PBIS. We gather a lot of information on the school climate that way. School lunch and payment programs for those people that are in that segment of the market. Teaching tools, technology platforms, what website tools are they using? We're introducing a new one coming up in the next 30 days that'll be around tutoring companies. What specific tutoring companies, if they're outsourcing tutoring, are they using? So one of the things that's great with our Ed Intel product is, excuse me, we recrawl the entire universe every 60 days. And so when we start to see things like, oh, there's going to be a lot of money going into tutoring, can we identify who's in those spaces, what's growing? We're regathering that information every 60 days, and we can spin up new categories. We did that with school lunch. We had one of our clients in that space said, I really want to understand what payment systems they're using. And so we were able to gather that information any time of the year very quickly and spin up new pieces. So as new things come out in the market and we see new trends, we're able to address those with this deep information around these particular any particular area, like these categories that really allow you to have deep information about that district. That deep information is useful, particularly in marketing campaigns, but also on the sales side, allowing your sales team to really understand, you know, what of your competitors are actually working with this district, or are they not? You know, that really allows you to know how to navigate that conversation when you're interacting with the district. ERate Data, $4.2 billion over the next 5 years is going into ERate. ERate's really broken into two different areas. So the first is broadband connectivity. You know, we now know that most of the schools and districts in this country now have high-speed broadband. That's a big improvement over just a few years ago. And we can tell you, is this district connected at a gigabit or 10 gigabits? So if you're delivering video or you depend on high bandwidth, you know which districts are capable of supporting that and which ones aren't. But we can also help you understand on their Category 2 funds. So how much is going to wireless infrastructure? What's going to wired infrastructure? What kind of things are they buying? We have a lot of information on the E-rate side. I think it's a bit of an untapped resource and information base that's available around the education funding environment. One of the other data sets we gather is school and student performance. Agile is unique in that we gather this information directly at the state level. So we don't wait the 2 years for the feds to publish that information on an aggregated basis. We gather it as the states release it. We've been doing this now for about 5 years. And so we've got contacts in each of the states. We reach out to them as those become available, and we start to gather and compile that. And it's a challenging data set to build. The team here worked very hard to gather this particular data set that many times all of the different data elements are in different files. Sometimes we're dealing with 10, 12 files from an individual state. Literally, there are thousands of data sources that go into compiling this particular information. But it's super useful in really understanding, you know, what are the challenges that a school is facing. Many of our clients have products that, whether you're a tutoring company or whether you're a curriculum company, that address student learning. You know, what a surprise, you're in education, student learning. And understanding, is this school a high-performing school? Then their needs are different than a school that's a low-performing school. A few years ago, the team here was working on how do we explain this information better. So we chose two schools. Our office is in downtown Denver, and we've got two schools that are in fairly close proximity. And one of those is a high Title I school, and they are one of the lower performing schools in DPS. And we've got another one just a few miles away. It's one of the highest performing elementary schools. And we actually reached out and talked to each of the principals. And the principal in the low performing school, his major concerns was, how does he improve the students and also improve their image as a school in the neighborhood so that parents want their kids to go to that particular school. And so that's very much his focus, was all around student performance and how does he improve student performance. The high performing school, her challenge was in managing parent expectations. And yet these two schools are almost the same size. They have the same grade range. They're in the same district. And yet from a principal standpoint, their needs couldn't be more different. It's important when you reach out to a school that you understand what that environment is. What does this school really look like? And how am I going to tailor my approach, my presentation, my marketing to appeal to that particular person I'm reaching out to, by knowing what the characteristics of that school are. We also gather civil rights data from the federal side. It's a deep data set with a lot of very specific information that isn't really available anywhere else. You get an understanding of how many first and second year teachers are in that particular school. It's really one of those things that the studies have really shown that the quality of teacher really impacts more than anything else. It's more than the technology, it's more than the curriculum. It's the quality of the teacher that impacts learning of the students. And so knowing, what schools have a lot of first and second year teachers so that you can target and say, boy, this school is going to be in need of professional development. How do we help those early teachers become great teachers? Things like teacher absenteeism, criminal activity, enrollment in AP programs and gifted and talented, SAT, ACT participation in sports. There's a lot of information in that again helps you understand what's this school that I'm talking to? What do they look like? High quality data. So, really that is the core of what we do. Agile has, as I said, our team really focuses on, and you've seen from the pieces I've hit on here so far, we have the deepest, most detailed information available in the education space. And we work really hard at gathering all those pieces and making sure they all fit back together. So every time the feds release a data set, we reintegrate that in and we look at, if they say a school is closed and we say it's open, then we've got to make a phone call out there and figure out what's true. Let's make sure that, because Fed data isn't always right. And sometimes, since it's quite often published 2 years in arrears, maybe that school's reopened. Maybe it was under construction for a year and they were remodeling it. So, it takes a lot of work to reintegrate that information every time and make sure that we really have the best compiled of, whether it's state data, the federal data, our data that we gather ourselves. We make more than 500,000 phone calls a year into schools and districts. So we really work hard to make sure that composite, that final product, is the best that it can be. And, we offer that through data leases, whether it's school information, personnel information, at home. We talked about our Ed Intel data. We also offer database services. So our database services team here is top notch. We do a lot of data matches for our clients. We do a lot of data hygiene, dedupe kind of stuff. We profile that information. We can tell you, who are your best customers? What does it look like? And we can also tell you areas where you might be underrepresented. A number of years ago, I was working on an e-profile project, and one of the largest publishers in the space, and they did great with big districts. They had a direct sales team. The direct sales team was out working with those. and they really had that nailed. They did actually quite well with some very small districts. They had a very good direct marketing team. They marketed directly. They were relatively small. They could make decisions. But when you looked at their penetration, and I was working with their CMO, I said, boy, you guys really, there's this one segment kind of in the middle, these mid-sized districts. He says, we just don't have a strategy that fits for them. They're too small for our direct sales team, and there's too many decision makers to respond to direct mail or a direct marketing approach. We don't yet have a strategy for how we address that. And so, you know, we can really help people identify where their sweet spots and where there are areas they might have challenges. And that's one where we were really able to help them identify and say, boy, we need a strategy for these mid-sized districts. We just don't have that today. We also do a lot of data enhancement where, you know, we'll fill in information, whether it's, you know, missing enrollments or whatever. So database services is a big part of what we offer. Engagement. So we do deploy emails. We deploy several million emails a month on behalf of our clients, and those go out. And that also feeds back into our data. We utilize those deployments to update hard bounce information. So we hard bounce off of our file roughly 10,000 emails every week. And so that feeds back in and helps us keep that quality high. We do targeted social advertising. Yeah, it's been one of the areas I'm most excited about. You know, I started getting involved in social media myself so I could understand and see how do marketers interact in social and what do they do. And, you know, it's really unique for us because given the strength of our teacher data, we can really make sure that that message that you're putting out on social is to a real teacher, not just somebody that has shown interest in education somewhere along the way, or, you know, is somehow friends with multiple teachers. You know, we really allow you to say, great, we want that message to go out really to educators and make sure that they are the people getting that message, not just this broader group. We also, the other thing that Agile has been particularly strong in, both Bob and I have a background in technology and software development, is our integrations. The first integration we did was ConnectLink, our integration with Salesforce. We have a large number of clients now running ConnectLink that, you know, get data directly from our data, put into their systems on a weekly basis from ConnectLink. And that really allows them to keep their data quality high and have that information flowing in, whether, you know, it's teacher superintendent turnover. We typically see in the K-12, and it really holds into higher ed as well, about a 20% turnover every year. It's incredibly high. And so, you know, 2 years, if you haven't had that flow coming in, 40%, if you compound it, approaching 50% of that staff is turned over. So it's really important to have that fresh data flowing in, but also knowing what to take out. So who's gone inactive, who's no longer at that district. Agile Connect connects in with the other major CRM and marketing automation platforms. We also have APIs that we've developed that allow people to drive their website. So if you've got interactions with educators, they can put in a zip code and we can quickly pull up, here are the schools in your area, and they can select their school. So you have a consistency of information in your data set and help drive that through your website. We've also developed our Data Explorer tool that is a web-based interface into our information that allows for building of email lists or direct marketing lists, as well as just pulling up information around particular schools and districts. So very rounded out, although we're best known, I think, certainly for our data. It's not only just the data, it's making sure that you have that ability to use that information. That's where it really matters. Building on that, so find the right person. One thing that's unique about the education space is the breadth of the influencers. While we'll see a lot of purchasing decisions, particularly in site-based districts, done by the principals, they're not initiating many things. The influencers are. It's the teachers, it's the librarian, it's the tech coordinators that are coming to them and saying, hey, this is where we think we need to buy these products. And it's important when you're reaching out into the ed space that you have those influencers as part of it. Because if you're just driving that message to the superintendent or to the principal, they're not the people that are starting the process in most cases. It's these influencers, these committees that are pulling this information, doing the research, bringing that forward to the others. The stakeholders in the organization, the decision makers, those principals, you want when the tech team brings forward a recommendation that the principal has heard of that company. They've heard of you. They know who you are. They've seen your marketing information. You've got to be able to have that dual piece and being able to hit the users. Driving engagement. One of the changes that has really hit the education space hard is the move to email deployment or email to predominant email platforms. So Google represents well over 50% of school email inboxes these days. Microsoft with their Office products pulling up the next, about 25%, a little more than that maybe. And then other is the third category there. But particularly on the Google side and the Microsoft side just as well, they, together they represent 75% of the inboxes in education. Where 10 years ago, 15 years ago, every district had their own little email server, and that email server didn't talk to any other email server. That just isn't the case anymore. That Google aggregates and sees across this entire space millions of inboxes. Who's sending messages to these people? How many are going out at a time? How many are getting opened? What does the engagement rate really look like? It really makes a difference when you're working with those deployments, that you understand those characteristics, because Google's watching. They're paying attention to what's going on there. And if you're just trying to blast out to 4.2 million K-12 educators and you don't have a very good engagement rate, guess where you end up? Either in email jail, or you end up go down at the bottom of the junk folder. So driving engagement is one of the things we really work with our clients, both on the social side, targeted digital advertising, and on the email side. Our data is used a lot in modeling and analytics. We have such deep information that we really allow you to understand who are your best prospects, who are you struggling with, how can you find lookalikes. Great, we're doing great in this group of districts. Tell us what the common characteristics are so that we can find others like them. Sales and marketing strategic opportunities. It's one of the areas where, we really, our data is so structured. Every public school is attached to a district, and it really allows for market sizing, roll-ups. The data's tied together. We don't have educators that just float around and aren't tied to a building because they answered some kind of magazine survey somewhere. They showed an interest in education. We know that they're at a particular school. We know what their role is, and we really allow you then to use that information and roll that up to do market sizing, market opportunities. I mentioned early on, we work with a number of the leading market research companies in the education space, and they utilize that information as well as the surveys that go out to help identify and allow you to really understand what does this market look like? What would be the interest in a particular product? How do we decide sales territories? But it all comes back to your business and really driving your success. That's what we're really here trying to do. Whether we're helping your business leaders identify those opportunities and look for new product options and understand what the opportunity for those are, whether we're helping your sales team find lookalikes, whether we're working with your marketing team to get that right message to the right person at the right time, that's where the rubber hits the road. Is really your success. And in doing that, part of what we do for all of our clients is our product offerings are incredibly personalized. So every data lease is slightly different. They're not just cookie cutter for us. We don't offer 4 packages. So we've got the base data and a tech package and a funding package. We really work to understand what your company needs to drive success for your marketplace, your products. Diving down into real world a little bit, I've hinted and talked a little about targeting and helping companies identify. One of the companies we worked with on targeting was Classcraft, and they had a really interesting product that combined some gamification, student engagement, along with SEL and PBIS. And so we were able to span across our data and find those schools which had all those characteristics and allowed them to really identify the best candidates. And when they targeted their marketing to that area, they saw their open rates double by just really identifying the right prospects and being able to target the marketing to that. We've got another client we worked with on the similarly, that they kind of micro-targeted, if you will, their offerings that they put out. They targeted state at a time, and they targeted a different marketing, different email campaign to educators versus school administrators versus district. They always identified the state standards for that state, and their open rates were 4 or 5 times what our average open rate is. Did they go to a lot of extra work? They did. Their marketing team worked really hard to make sure that when you're sending emails into educators, the pictures were of educators. They weren't of, they were of teachers. They were not of principals or, something that looked more business-like. They really did a great job about having the message around, this is a message that appeals to a teacher. This is what we're trying to sell to them. And the needs are different whether you're a teacher, a principal, a district administrator, and making sure that those fit. So, that's a key part of this. We talked about Google and their control of this particular space. Those open rates are critical. If you have a low engagement rate, they decide based on the early engagement rate on a campaign where it goes. If the engagement rate is good, it gets good inbox placement. If it's not, it goes down into the unfocused or down into the junk folder. So super important that you have that targeting and the targeted messaging. Clean data. So one of the things that having this and having our integrations and stuff is all about clean information. What's the cost of bad information? I often describe CRMs as a garbage dump. Everything comes in, nothing goes out. And over the years, it just is so full of trash. I was on a call with a prospect the other day, and he said, we've got this problem. We've got dirty data issues in our CRM. And he said, the salespeople are just so distracted. Every time they get in there, they're so busy looking around at what all the garbage is that they can't focus on trying to get their job done. So, keep your sales team focused. Let them do their job by giving them the tools they need, which is good, clean information. I saw some stats recently that I think are worth sharing. And this one's been around for a while, that businesses lose between 6 and 10% of their annual revenue to bad data alone. So that's a big, you want to increase your top line, go after the bad data. That's an easy one. 21% of companies admit to experiencing reputation damage due to bad data. Wow, that's a big number. 28% of brands report hits to customer service due to invalid email address or inability to effectively connect with customers. 93% of consumers receive irrelevant marketing communications, and 90% of those consumers are annoyed by it. That isn't, you don't want that to be your reputation in the marketplace. 38% of companies rely on manual, time-consuming duplicate checks. Oh, that sounds like a horrible way to clean up your data. Database services would be a better way to go about that. And 67% of brands report issues with email deliverability and bounce rates as a direct result of poor data quality. You know, Agile can really help you between our great data, our ability to target, and our integrations, keep that data clean in your CRM and your marketing automation systems. That's really the wrap on the, you know, kind of the deep dive into Agile. I know I rolled through a lot of information quickly. Let's open this up and see if there's some questions here in the remaining 15 minutes that we have available.
All right. Well, we're waiting on some of the questions. We did have one, and it was, if someone is just starting out in business, where could they go to get some basic data or database management training?
You know, part of that, you know, the easiest step is, you know, reach out to the resources around you. My good example of that is my son has been a classroom teacher for about 15 years, moved into administration, and one of his first projects was trying to understand, you know, in the freshmen and sophomores in his school, who were the students that were most challenged, what was their needs, and he had to learn how to use pivot tables, and he reached out to his district staff and got things there. He reached out to me. You know, reach out to your network and find people that can help you with that. But ideally, partner with somebody like Agile. We really work with our clients so that you don't have to be the data experts, we are. And whether it's myself, it's our sales team, our account management team, we've got people here to help you understand school district information, teacher buying behavior, and help you make sure that you're getting the most out of the information.
Another question by Eva was, does Agile have data on K-12 private schools?
K-12, what? I'm sorry, Dylan.
I'm sorry about that, K-12 private schools.
Yes, we do. So we have, you know, exceptionally strong coverage on the private side, and do have very complete coverage there. And certainly, you know, it was interesting. We were talking about it the other day. We saw some, you know, some of the private schools really grow in this period, and others just cease operation. And so the really small ones struggled in the environment. They had a hard time going virtual. They didn't have the network infrastructure. They didn't have the LMS systems. They weren't virtual ready. Where some of the more sophisticated ones, you know, they were able to pick up and grow. And so, you know, there was a real opportunity that the ones with greater sophistication grew, and those that were very small really struggled when they had trouble being in person. What else, Dylan?
Okay, another question was, does Agile integrate with all marketing automation platforms? Have you ever worked with Acoustic in the past?
We currently have integrations for HubSpot, Marketo, Salesforce, Dynamics, Eloqua, I think are the current, but we're adding integrations all the time. The other opportunity we have is by utilizing our APIs that we have for those other integrations, is we've had a few customers do integrations themselves. And we always have the ability to deliver files and do this in a more manual method. So while we don't have every platform covered, we're constantly adding platforms and adding integrations to our suite.
Thank you. So another question was, somebody said, I'm looking to target a group of teachers to administer a market analysis survey. I'm guessing their question is if we can help them with that.
It's the kind of thing we do all the time. So, we've worked with surveys from, as I mentioned, leading survey companies. We did a big survey for Amazon a few years ago. So we've done from very big surveys to very targeted, smaller surveys, and do survey work all the time with our clients. So absolutely, the team here is very versed in putting that together. And if we're not the right partner, we certainly will introduce you to some of the people that we work with that are, that handle large market research surveys and things as well.
Thank you. So another question was, with so much data and a lot of changes going on, how do you keep your system up to date?
We go through, we're fairly unique. The district side is really interesting, and we're seeing, of course, a lot of movement there. One of the things, I just pulled some numbers together recently. At the end of July last year, we'd seen a 13% turnover in superintendents from the beginning of the year. This year, we were already at 18%. So we saw a 30% increase this year in superintendent turnover over last. We expect that to be there. We really focus a lot of energy. We do multiple updates a year of district personnel. We look for specifically superintendent changes, and districts that have had a superintendent change, we circle back on those 90 days later, because one of the things we certainly know is that when you turn over a superintendent, it's not unlikely that they do some reorganization and turnover of staff as well. We saw one of those here in Colorado a couple of years ago, where they turned over the superintendent, and then within 6 months, 26 of like the 40 top people in that district had moved. So either into new roles or left the district. So, we do quite a number of things to stay on top of that particular thing, including multiple full updates a year.
All right, thank you very much. And so a question that would kind of go with that one, why would I want to remove records?
It goes back to the garbage dump analogy. One of the things that happens with that CRM is everybody is great at pumping data in. You went to a trade show, all those cards get scanned and dumped in, or you get a attendee list and that gets pulled in, or you've licensed data and you keep pulling, here are the new teachers, boom, boom, month after month, you're loading that in. You've got to have a means to identify who's no longer there. What emails are bouncing so that you can get those removed off of your file very quickly. You don't want to continue to send out to bounced and bad emails. You want those off the file. You want people that are no longer there removed, so that you're really working with both your marketing efforts, have that current information and get that best delivery rate possible, but also your sales team isn't having to go out and do that research every time by themselves and trying to reach out. Oh, it said superintendent, but there are 3 of them here. I don't know which one's the current superintendent. Let's make sure that you have that mechanism that allows you to get that old information off your file. And, one of the things we did here at Agile is I did an analysis, fairly early on, looking at things of, what were the real components of data quality? And when we found issues with it, where did it come from? And one of those things I found was that it was the aging of records. And so if a record had been on the file and not verified in the last 24 months, the likelihood, it was 50% likely that that person wasn't there anymore. We use the most aggressive cleaning in the industry. We drop people off of our file after 24 months. And so if we can't verify that you're there in 2 cycles, you're gone. And that really allows us to make sure that the people that are on our file are in that role, they're at that school, so that we can make sure our clients are getting the best data.
All right, so we have 2 more questions. The first one was, do you still offer a self-service option in creating a prospect list?
We do. So we have a tool called Prospector that is a full self-serve tool, and clients can get on any time of the day or night. They can pull their own lists, and that is available. We also have clients that are using our Data Explorer product, the one to build their own list. That's a slightly different, where you're licensing some of the data and things. You don't have to have a credit card in hand. So 2 different solutions there to satisfy that. And particularly, it's always interesting this time of year to kind of see the transactions come through and who are those people. And a lot of times it's smaller organizations that are trying to serve a regional market or a very particular group where they're trying to do that reach out. So we do have solutions in that area for sure.
All right, and the last question so far is, does Agile provide data governance, guidance, and resources for clients in K-12?
We do work with a number of our clients in those areas, and we talk about that in some of the different webinars and things. And so, I've worked with a number of our clients in terms of setting up data governance teams and kind of best practices. And so we do give guidance in that area. We cover that kind of topic in a number of our webinars and things. So it is an area that we're actively involved in and actively work with. And there are certainly some best practices in terms of, identifying the information you need, making sure you have a mechanism to keep it clean, and controlling things like, how do new schools get created? One of the challenges that you certainly see is where, a sales rep can just create schools. Well, we had one client come to us, and we process their data through to match to ours and do data cleanup projects and things. And they had a significant number of schools and districts marked as being in Texas that weren't actually in Texas. And what I believe had happened was that a rep had those come in, and they decided that they'd rather they be in their territory than somebody else's, and so they got marked as Texas. And so, you really want to make sure that you have control over those type of things, so you don't get, either 27 versions of John F. Kennedy High School, or you get somebody that is actually, kind of subverting your processes by marking a bunch of schools as being in Texas. Any other questions, Dylan?
I think that is it for right now. Doesn't seem like anybody's got any other questions.
All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for their time today, coming and listening to the webinar. And always know the team here at Agile is here to be your partner in this space. So, you can certainly call, talk to. We jump on calls all the time, jump on. The team here has gotten over the last 18 months very good at Zoom. And so, we're ready to get on calls with people, walk through their needs, help in any way we can, and pull in the experts, whether, it's myself, Mike LeClaire, who heads up our compilation team, or, any of the team here, to get on and work with our clients and be of assistance and help you understand some of the characteristics of this particular market and what can help your organization navigate this unique marketplace.
All right. Like Verlan said, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you Verlan for a great presentation. If you know anyone that could not make it or had to leave early, there will be an email sent out with this link, and it will also be added to our YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to our channel, this is a great way to catch up on all our past webinar recordings. Thank you for coming and have a great day.